Welcome to Fred with Mr. Nice Guy, and I am your host, MNG. And today we have another fantastic show for you today, and we're going to do a Riddick read. Now, if you know from our past shows, we have done Riddick reads, just taking some things off of Riddick and kind of diagnosing them, analyzing them, and then trying to see if we can help some of these guys out with some of the issues that they are talking about on Reddit. So this one goes, sometimes I feel that dads, especially active dads, are unappreciated and invisible. So today was Father's Day here in Australia, and I think also in New Zealand. My pregnant wife didn't say Happy Father's Day and just threw her gift of clothes and Madden 24 on the ground in a fit of rage because she feels that I haven't been supportive enough with her work problems. I gave her advice and she didn't want to listen. Fast forward to 1 p.m. when we went to the midwife appointment, and none of the midwives acknowledged me. Neither did the other 3 pregnant mothers that walked into the facility. I feel like I'm Casper the Ghost sometimes. I told my wife I just want to feel appreciated for the things I do around the house and for our oldest toddler daughter. Am I overreacting? Let's start with Father's Day. I had to look it up, but Father's Day ranked amongst all the holidays and the holidays or the days that are celebrated along through the year is actually ranked number 16. Now, here's my issue with that. As the tides are changing and more fathers are becoming active in their child's lives, or the fathers are taking custody of those said children, I believe in probably about 1 or 2 generations, Father's Day will creep up from 16 maybe into the top 10. It's unfortunate that fathers are seen or treated in such a bad light or aspect that Father's Day is rated number 16. I don't think that people believe. I want to highlight that there may be more to this story. You know how I get with these stories because I like to see it from all sides, because a lot of things that is said in this post it's not for telling, because he's basically saying that he wasn't appreciated on Father's Day. Okay, well, what happened the day before? Okay, what happened the day before? Did you get on her nerves the day before? How the case is? But also we can point out that his wife is pregnant. How far along is she? We don't know. But we could also say that his wife is pregnant. The other women that's in the story are pregnant, and he wanted to be acknowledged for Father's Day. Unfortunately, in this situation, the wife is pregnant. I don't want to say anything that's going to offend anybody, but she is pregnant, so there's really no telling what this young lady was going through. There's no telling on what their actual communication is. Now, I do have some strategies and some thoughts on how to proceed from here. So, why do he feel unappreciated? So he feels unappreciated because he does stuff around the house, but he doesn't list what he does around the house. So that right there is a common factor, is that us as men, or just me myself, I'll just talk about me. I don't want to talk for any other man that listens to this podcast. I just want to talk for me. So for me, I know I cook, I clean, I do laundry, I cut the grass, I fix things around the house. So I can list off some of the things that I do around the house that, obviously man will do, if we just eliminate gender roles, I am taken care of in the household. So with putting that list out and saying, yes, I do this, I do that, it gives a person that's reading this more of an understanding of what's actually happening. So he's saying that, he wants to be more feel appreciated for some of the things that he do around the house. But what are those things that you do around the house? Because we're talking about a pregnant woman. What more could you do, or that you have done or is doing now that she's pregnant? So if you weren't doing the laundry before, but you're doing the laundry now because she's pregnant. So a lot of that stuff kind of comes into play in the conversation when you're talking about, well, I do a lot around the house and I just want to feel appreciated. Okay, well, what are you doing around the house that you probably wasn't doing before she was pregnant? but now that she's pregnant. So it's kind of that back and forth thing. So if this person would have listed the things they would have done around the house, because we could say, oh, well, he probably do the laundry. He's probably fixing the roof. He's probably cooking and taking the kids to daycare or whatever the case is. But the bottom line ends up being, was he doing that prior to her being pregnant? Because if that's a no, then it's kind of hard for another person to show appreciation for doing that additional stuff, which you could have been doing in the first place. Now, we were saying he was going the extra mile with doing the cooking, the cleaning, the fixing of everything, and the gardening outside, and the cutting the grass, and the shopping of groceries, and she didn't do anything at all, and he took on all the extra load of maintaining the household while she relaxed through pregnancy. Not saying that makes it valid by doing all those things. Now, there are a few ways that this person right here can combat these feelings. I want to know his feelings aren't being validated. So that's a major thing right there. So he feels unappreciated. So now I'm curious of how long has he felt unappreciated? Because if he felt unappreciated for a long time, then this feeling is not new. Because he wants to be acknowledged by his wife. He wants to be acknowledged by other people. And it's kind of like, okay, you want to be acknowledged, but has this been an issue in the past during your marriage? I'm only wondering that because it's probably or could have been a buildup over time. Say throughout the entire pregnancy, he decided to pick up more of the responsibility and the chores around the house and started doing a little bit more. And he didn't mind not being acknowledged for it. But then on Father's Day, he felt like, oh, now I should be acknowledged for all of that stuff that I did, because now it's Father's Day, regulating all of that to just one particular day. If the person is doing that, then they're going about it the wrong way, essentially. They should not regulate their entire feelings of appreciation that have occurred over time where they didn't want to be acknowledged or didn't want it to be recognized, and then they just regulate it to one particular day and say, hey, you know what? This is the day that I want to be recognized on. This is the day that I want you to say something to me. She gonna be like, fuck you. No, I'm not doing that shit. I'm not about to recognize you on one particular day, and this is the day that I'm having the worst day of my life right now. It's not gonna go over well. So then you're just fighting a dead end argument. If we look at the big picture here, and we just kind of just run everything together, what was he doing before the pregnancy that he's doing during the pregnancy? Did he pick up extra stuff? Did he not pick up extra stuff? What is it that he wants to be appreciated of that he hasn't been appreciated of during the whole pregnancy? And then even in the title says sometimes he feels that especially active dads are underappreciated and invisible. I can honestly say, maybe in his circle, maybe in Australia, maybe in New Zealand, maybe in the UK, I don't know. But I know in my circle, active dads are appreciated. I know several dads that have custody of their kids, and they are doing quite well with them. But let's talk about unappreciated and invisible. I don't feel unappreciated or invisible. I get comments on being a great father all the time from friends, family. Even my son's mother has complimented me on just taking custody of our son and raising him and doing everything that I'm supposed to do with being able to provide and give him a good life. So I don't feel invisible. I don't feel unappreciated. So I don't understand his concept of, because he's speaking in general. So I can only guess that he's speaking for his circle. That he's saying that dads, especially active dads, are unappreciated and invisible. And that could possibly be true. I don't know. I can only say that because I've been on one side of the field where I was the weekend parent. And I did my best to try to be there every weekend. And like I've said before, I have called off. I treat it like a job. I have called off. I wasn't the best weekend parent. I was not the best weekend parent. But the best full-time parent, I will take that all day long. I'll take that shit to the bank. I have been a good full-time parent. Part-time, I wasn't good. I wasn't good with part-time. I like my weekends. Nobody wants to go to a second job on the weekends unless they have to. But I was a bad part-time parent, but I was a great full-time parent. Like the Monday through Friday or the 7 days a week, all for it. Weekends, not so much. Now, there is another line in here that I want to kind of grasp at before I get too far and get too lost into this conversation. And it's the one part where she threw his stuff to the ground and she says because she feels they haven't been supportive enough with her work problems. Now, this is kind of a touchy subject because how is he supposed to be supportive with her work problems? Now, this guy sounds like he's a fixer because he said he gave her some advice and she didn't want to listen. So I think in this aspect, he was supposed to do more listening than talking. And she just wanted him to listen. And I think that's where but some men go wrong. Because some of us, not all of us, but some of us could be fixers. And I know we have heard this before, that we just try to go in, we try to just fix things. Because that's what we do. We fix things. We fix cars, we fix roofs, we fix doors. We see a problem, we provide a solution. I had told one person, it's one of my employees. She came to me and she was complaining about the job. She was griping and she was like, the job is this, the job is that, management is this, management is that. These motherfuckers ain't doing what they supposed to. She didn't say motherfuckers, but I just threw that in there for, context. So I'm listening to her and I say, okay, did you want me to listen or did you actually want a response? Because if you want me to listen, I'll listen. I will be your journal. And you can tell me all the things you want to tell me about the job. You can do that. But do you want my opinion? Do you want solutions? Do you want encouragement? Do you want enthusiasm? Because if you are coming to me and you want me to be a journal, I can be that. But I do have solutions for you. I do have responses for you. It all depends on which one you want. Now, I've had friends, and this is me personally. I went and I vented too. I vented about every damn thing. Any goddamn thing I could think about, I vented. And I simply told them before I got started, I don't want your advice. I just want you to listen. Just listen, and then we can move on to another conversation. I really just want to vent. Sometimes you have to tell your friends that. And sometimes you have to tell your counterpart that. I don't want your advice. I just need you to listen. I need you to hear what I'm saying. I need you to validate how I feel with listening. That's all I want you to do is listen. Listen, listen, listen. It is one of the most hardest and sometimes difficult things for a person to do is to listen to somebody complain without giving a response to their situation, a response to their issue. I have been in those shoes. I be listening. I got about 10 responses ready to go. And I'm trying to listen really hard. I'm trying. And I'm trying not to interrupt. And it just be right there on the tip of my tongue, ready to go. It's like a fever. It's just ready. It's ready, ready, ready. It's so ready. And then what happens? I get lost in the conversation with formulating response after response after response after response. And then when I'm ready to respond, after trying so hard not to interrupt, essentially just had to listen. And I have been victim and the accuser of those things. Not listening, wanting somebody to listen, without any input, without any criticism, without any judgment. I wanted those things. But it's difficult when you see somebody in distress not to provide a solution, especially when you care about them. You want to provide a solution. You want to say, hey, I have an answer for you. And sometimes they're not really looking for an answer. Somebody told me that active listening is the hardest thing to do. To listen with clarity. A good friend of mine told me, listen for understanding. Do not listen to respond. And I spent so much time listening to respond. I wasn't actually listening to the person. And I think that's kind of what's happening here. I really think they should sit down and have a discussion and listen to each other. Really listen to each other and validate one another's feelings is an art form. I read a book. Actually, I didn't read the book. It was an audio book. I used to be a driver, and I got tired of listening to music while I drove. It's kind of like I was delivering packages, so listening to music was kind of like, So I decided to enrich my life and listen to audiobooks. Was the best decision I can tell. The best, if you are delivering packages like Amazon or whatever like that, the best thing you can do while you're doing that is listen to audiobooks. It's very enriching, and it kind of helped me focus a little bit too. So I was listening to this audiobook, and I felt like my communication wasn't 100%. So I wanted to work on it a little bit, especially when it came to relationships, friendships, whatever the case is. Especially when it came to relationships, I wanted to definitely improve the way I communicated and how I communicated. My feelings, my intentions, my thoughts, everything. So I realized how communication is an art form. So in this book, it basically explained active listening. And it drove me crazy because the concept was so simple, you can miss it. So you have the speaker, you have the medium, and then you have the listener. Now let me break it down for you. You have the speaker that is communicating their intentions, right? You have the medium. Now the medium is whatever you're communicating, whatever environment you're communicating in, or whatever you're using to communicate. So if you're talking through a phone, that's the medium. If you're watching TV, you're communicating, but the atmosphere that you're in, there is a distraction with the TV, meaning that somebody is going to get distracted, either the speaker or the listener is going to get distracted in the midst of the communication. If you're talking through text, that's a medium. Email, that's a medium. If you're doing voice messages, that's a medium. For the iPhone users, if you're doing a video chat, that's the medium. So that medium can depict what the interpretation is going to be from the communicator, the speaker, and the receiver. So the receiver is the person that has to interpret the information coming through the medium. And this is why active listening is so crucial, because the speaker, based on their tone, body language, they're communicating whatever intentions they're trying to communicate. It is going through the medium. Once it goes through the medium, the receiver has to interpret that information. So with that information being interpreted by them, they're already at a slight disadvantage, because depending on what that medium is, even if you're on a phone and the receiver is watching TV, they're distracted. They're going to miss the message. Or they're on Instagram, they're going to miss the message. If they're on Facebook, they're going to miss the message. Active listening means that you are completely active and engaged in the conversation, and you are completely listening to what that person has to say. At the point in time that you have stopped listening and engaged in another activity, your brain cannot do two things at once, which is listen and pay attention. Even though it happens on opposite sides of the brain, you cannot watch TV and listen to a conversation at the same time without tuning one or the other out. Let me say it again. You cannot watch TV and have a conversation and say, oh, well, I'm active in this conversation, when you're really not. Because even if your head turned and looked at that other person and you're in the midst of the conversation, but the TV is on and the volume is playing, your one ear is tuned to the TV while your other ear is tuned into the conversation. Somebody is going to get tuned out, and you're going to say, well, say that again. I didn't catch that. One more time. How many of us caught ourselves doing that? How many of us caught ourselves in the middle of a conversation and then get wrapped up in something else because we was busy, or we were cooking, or somebody came in and distracted us, and we just missed the whole conversation? So now we're trying to go back into our memory and play it back to see if we can go ahead and capture what we had just missed. How many of us did that? We have done that. I have done that. I have been here sitting on my computer playing video games in the midst of a whole conversation and cannot pay attention to one or the other. So I'm bouncing back and forth, and it is getting me nowhere but to the end of the conversation. I done told a person in the last 5 minutes of a conversation. Can you say that one more time? Wait a minute. Run that past me again. I didn't catch that. As if I was already listening, but I wasn't, because I was mixed up in something else that I was actively giving my attention to. Active listening. I believe in this conversation right here, they need to active listen. And if that doesn't work, then I would definitely say go to therapy. I know that is the end all be all for a lot of people, but therapy actually helps and it's actually beneficial. You know, one person told me, my cousin, he said, you know, me and my wife don't have problems, but we still go to therapy in order to avoid having problems. And that hit me deep, because mainly or mostly people that go to therapy have problems that they're trying to fix. But the person that is not trying to save their relationship because their relationship is already good goes to therapy to keep their relationship good, because you already understand that you can't do it by yourself to maintain where you're at or to excel where you're at. Don't wait to go get advice when you're already at a breaking point. You want to go get the advice before you reach the breaking point. I'm going to end that there. I am going to end that there. Catch me next time for another episode of Ready Read. You know we got another episode. Every episode come out on Mondays. Every Monday we got new episodes dropping. I am your host, MNG. I will see you again. Thanks for listening.